Kia ora members and kia ora members of the public. Nau mai haere mai, welcome along to this Komiti Arataki Mahiri Rohi, the District Plan Review Committee. Thank you for joining us here today. We'll move on to the first item. Sorry, emergency procedures are on the screen there. If you're feeling unwell, please don't attend. Mobile phones, we ask that they're on silent. And thank you also to the people that are joining us on our Facebook page. I don't think any members are joining us on Zoom, and no officers are either, so that's fine. Cool. We'll move on to item number 1, which is our opening karakia. E noi tātou. Tēnei o te haukai nei o taku tapawai. Ko te haukai nuku, ko te haukai rangi, ko te haukai o tau tupuna a tānei nui o rangi. Ka pikiti ai ki ngā rangi tūhāhā, ki te tiho o mā nono. Ka rokohina atu rā, ko I o mātua kori anaki, ka tikinga mai nā kiti o te wānanga. Ko te kiti tuauri, ko te kiti tuatia, ko te kiti aranui. Ka tiri ka popo a, ka putu mai e ho, ko te ira tangata, ki te whae au, ki te ao marama, tihei mauri ora. I've received apologies from Mayor Barry and Richard Tioni, and we haven't got any others. I'm happy to move it. Councillor Briggs is happy to second it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All against? I declare that carried. Before we move on to public comment, just want to remind members of the committee, particularly, but also members of the public that are here today, that today's meeting is about receiving a summary of the engagement of our draft district plan and the spatial work program. I'm a bit reluctant to get down to too many rabbit holes on particular subjects or topics without having heard from our officers first. So this report doesn't provide any commentary on the submissions or what officers are recommending as the next steps. The primary report in front of us today really is a summary of those submissions. So I'll be making sure that we don't stray too far away from the papers in front of us today. Cool, so we'll move into public comment. First speaker is Craig Innes, who is speaking firstly as himself. And then once that time's up, we'll allow Craig further time to speak on behalf of the Wainua Rural Community Association. Kia ora, Craig, thanks for joining us.
Okay, kia ora koutou. My submission was basically objecting to the minimum lot size in rural lifestyle from 2 hectares to 1 hectare on the grounds of water, light, sound, air pollution, electricity supply, infrastructure, road usage, rubbish collection and rural character. And I also especially object to that rezoning being applied to the end of Moores Valley, the two large parcels at the end of Moores Valley and also the end of Wainua North. They are very steep, and where it's flat, it is wetland, and where it is steep, it is a scree, and it's basically not suitable for housing, and it's not suitable for 1 hectare subdivision. I object to the highly productive overlay. It is out of date and not accurate. And I object to the outstanding natural features and outstanding natural landscapes being applied. I do not believe they're accurate. So with the point of electricity supply, we've been in talks with the Wellington Electricity. If we get too many, say, electric vehicles up Moores Valley or any of the rural areas, it's likely to cause an excessive drain, and of course that will be heightened if there's more houses. So we do need to look at these issues, especially electric vehicles. They make a very high drain on the electricity network. Road usage, Moores Valley is increasingly dangerous. We're having reports of vehicle crashes, also incidents with wild animals causing crashes, and we're having repeated complaints about spotlights from cars. The rubbish collection, we're finding the rubbish collection day is very dangerous. And also there's the important fact of the rural character of the area, and also I refer to the National Policy Statement on highly productive land. The basic principle is highly productive land and production is to be protected, and that is also reflected in the national policy, the national planning standards. And basically you're not supposed to allow subdivision of rural residential in such a way that it affects productive use of the general rural land. And there's no reflection in this draft summary of what actually is in production, and you need to be cognizant of those factors. Okay, so on behalf now,
Just before you move on to the submission from there, we'll just see if there's any questions. I've got one first. I just want to make sure you have made the submission you've just made to us now. You did make that submission, and
yes,
the points you've just raised are reflected in the summary in front of us today.
No, not in the summary. No. That is one of our points. Is the summary by staff is not reflective of submissions.
Okay. Any other questions from members? Councillor Briggs.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Craig, for coming in. Just one question around spotlights from cars and the complaints you're hearing.
Yes.
Is that from headlights from vehicles or people using spotlights for possums, or like a bit more detail would be helpful.
Okay, we're having a lot of problems with poaching. People shooting mainly deer, but there's been other animals shot, and they're using handheld spotlights from cars. That's happening in Coast Road and Moores Valley.
Councillor Mitchell.
Just as a follow-up, I guess, do you think that is an issue that can be addressed through the district plan, or is that an issue that needs to be addressed by, I don't know what, better police activity or whatever it is? Oh
yes, of course, we do report to the police. I guess for the district plan, the point is there's a general issue about the safety of the road, and that includes hitting animals, cars, and so increasing the density is going to increase the road traffic.
Any other questions before we move on to part 2? No. Kia ora, thanks, Craig.
Okay, so the Rural Community Association. First of all, I object to the allocation of only 3 minutes. My understanding is groups should have been given 10 minutes. So I've had to curtail the submission. I also strongly object to the summaries which is in your before you. They seem to be counting Rural Association submission as one submission. And if you look at your summary in that light, you can see that there's entirely different conclusions to be made. So, for instance, you'll see your staff claim that most submitters agreed to the reduction of the lot size, while the association, on behalf of its members, and we canvassed our members, said we did not, we strongly object, we object to that. So your overall conclusion, which your staff should have summarised, would be that most submitters objected to that. And the other one is they said that most submitters agreed with the zoning. Well, the association objected to the zoning, and it objected to how the zoning is applied and how inconsistent it is, especially up Moores Valley. So that's, we are strongly of that mind, but we object to that, and that is not being reflected in the summary, which is before you. So basically we'd just like to reiterate, we object to the minimum lot size being reduced to 1 hectare, and we object to, on the grounds of rural lifestyle, strain infrastructure, and the rural character. We put, and also the pressure on the roads. It also, we're concerned about the proximity of neighbouring properties and their septic tank footprint. We believe that the council in 2012 said it was going to investigate water quality issues, and that was in relation to Waitemata North. We've never seen that report, and we want to see that report because we think that there's already too much strain on the river. And we're very strong, we object to the rural lifestyle zone being applied to the end of Moores Valley. That's not appropriate. Also Waitemata North. And highly productive overlay, it first of all, that is the role of Greater Adelaide Regional Council. It's not your role. You shouldn't have it on your plan. It is based on a very old data set, very coarse, and it's out of date. And what you'll use, the rules you're applying are rules that are hindering production. Well, that whole purpose of the overlay is to protect productive activity. So you're not supposed to be putting all the restrictions on sheds and things like that. Basically, if it's got highly productive rural overlay, you're supposed to be allowing sheds. You're not supposed to be using it as an excuse to put much more restrictions on sheds and other productive items. And we also very strongly object to the outstanding natural features, outstanding natural landscape overlays. They are unfair. Many of the areas are not visible for as amenity values, and it's not fair, but it's not being applied to the bush areas above Eastbourne and also the Belmont Regional Park. They're public land. They should be considered to be assets for amenity assets. Thank you.
I'm happy to give you another minute if you've got a little bit more you wanted to say, or we can move into questions.
Well, again, with the outstanding natural landscapes, it's quite perverse that scrub-covered private land is being called outstanding natural landscapes, where the bush-covered land above Eastbourne and the Eastern Bays has been called is not been called outstanding natural landscape or feature. Thank you.
Cool. Councillor Morgan, then Councillor Mitchell, then Councillor Edwards, and then Councillor Shaw.
Kia ora, Craig. I'm just wondering, you said you canvassed the members in your group. Can you tell us how many members are in the group?
Right.
Please?
Well, so we've got approximately 50 properties represented, maybe about 100 people, and that's probably a minority of the rural population, so we don't speak for the entire rural community.
Thank you. I think that I was looking at a similar question. I was curious, you said, one of the first things you said was that your members are opposed to the reduction in lot sizes. I think in your personal submission, you mentioned in particular up the end of Moores Valley Road in North Wainuiomata. Do you represent the landowners of North Wainuiomata and the end of Moores Valley Road, and is that their view?
Right, so there are members in North Wainuiomata. We've had a separate committee, and I have had a separate discussion, and we do make it clear on our submission that we have a different position for Wainuiomata North. So our members in Wainuiomata North have a different position, and we sort of respect that, give them space for that.
So the people who own the land do want to be able to reduce the lot sizes?
So I can't say for all of them. I can only say for that at least one member, and I've heard from others that there is a more general idea that they are in favour, but there are still people who object.
Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. I think our thinking is all along the same lines. It's a reasonable point to make that a group shouldn't be counted as one submission, maybe in those pie charts, if that was the way it was counted. But I guess, and the chairman will correct me if I'm wrong, when we come to relook at some of these chapters and maybe ask for some of the submissions that came in to do with those chapters, we'll see the points that you make. But as my fellow colleagues have asked, I guess I'm hoping in your submission it sort of outlines how you actually gathered member input to be able to say, oh, this whole group opposes this and that, because I guess we'd be wanting to see some pretty clear, or we'd be wanting to see some evidence that there was a survey or that there was some way that you
Yes. Well, there is evidence of that. We can provide it. It was fairly informal. It was fairly rushed.
Sorry, my question's been answered as well. Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Kia ora, thanks for coming in, Craig.
Thank you.
Cheers. We'll move on now to... Sorry, just reading the notes. We'll move on to Ken Jackson, who's speaking on highly productive land, outstanding landscapes, coastal areas and SNAs. Kia ora, thanks, Ken. Talk to you. The bell will go at 3 minutes. If you want to leave a bit of time before that, then we can ask you some questions. Just want to push the button on the far right-hand side. The mic should light up.
Cool. All right. Hi. I appreciate the opportunity to have a say here today. I have a few topics I'd like to cover. Firstly, I have been in contact with members from the new government, and they have indicated that they are in the process of reviewing and stopping any progress with councils implementing SNAs on private property. They will also be reviewing the highly productive land overlays and almost certainly be taking Class 3 land off these overlays, which will mean that nearly all of Hutt City Council land will not be included in the new highly productive land overlays. I would suggest that Hutt City Council gets clarification from the new government before proceeding with highly productive lands or SNAs into the new district plan review, which will in turn save council both time and money. I also have some concerns with the survey on the district plan review. The survey didn't seem to reach enough people, especially those directly affected, to give a true reflection on the general public's views. I have been in contact and had discussions with 3 other large landowners that will be heavily affected by the proposed overlays in the district plan review covering coastal and outstanding natural landscapes. We have serious concerns with the proposed restrictions that these overlays will put on our land and believe it is verging on taking away our private property rights. As a group, which includes my family property, Rongorongo Station, Pinkarra Lodge, and possibly Gollins Valley Farm, with which we have potentially thousands of hectares of Indigenous biodiversity that we may be prepared to protect voluntarily, provided that we can get some assurances from council that we can do what we have been planning to do with the remainder of our properties in the future. If this is done properly, this could be a massive gain for the protection of Indigenous biodiversity on private land in the Hutt Valley, a win-win for everyone involved. One last question, it's probably not appropriate at this meeting, but can someone from council please explain to me why rural rates have been increasing by 15% per year when we receive nearly no services, and especially no 3 water services, which is supposedly the main reason for the rates increases? Thanks. That's all.
Kia ora. Thanks, Ken. Just one point of clarification just before we move into questions. Just on, you mentioned SNAs a few times. The draft district plan did not have any SNAs in there at all. We are waiting for the government to come out with their new position. So just wanted to clarify there was no position on SNAs.
I just thought I'd reiterate that.
And then just, I had one question before I open to the others. You mentioned that you didn't think enough people had been reached by the surveys. Are you aware that 6,500 individually addressed letters were sent out to every household that were directly affected by the draft district plan?
Yep, but there was a survey, or was that the submissions? I'm not
There was
sure.
individually addressed letters sent to 6,500.
Yeah, but was there a separate survey, or was that?
That was the letter informing them that your individual property is potentially impacted by the draft, and here's the link to do the survey.
I think it was an online survey, was it?
Part of it was in our hubs, in our libraries, and in
Part
this
of that
building.
summary with the graphs, etc. Yeah, that's the one that I thought.
Oh, the summary, the
no one
document
really-
today. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Kia ora, thanks for clarifying. Any other members got any questions? Councillor Mitchell?
Thanks, Ken. I was just curious for a bit more detail about, you mentioned yourself and a few other landowners and plans you have in place for your land in the future.
Yep.
Clearly, you think that this may impinge on those plans. I was just curious for a bit more detail about what those plans are and what particular parts of the district plan you're concerned about.
Well, the outstanding landscapes, the restrictions on that and the coastal are very, very restrictive on such, large areas of land, and that's going to put, any potential future plans pretty well in jeopardy as to what you can do. The guy from Pinkarra's Lodge, he's just bought the property with ideas of what he's paid a lot of money, had some ideas of what he's wanted to do. He's come in and received, well, actually he didn't receive anything. He only heard through other people. And now he's just wondering what he can do and what his future is on that property.
And what kind of plans are these? What is he planning to
Well,
do? that
I
he
mean,
might
there's a
not
lot of
be
it's
able to do?
tourism. Obviously, he's got a certain amount of farming that he's doing. Along those lines, more than anything. Yep. And with the highly productive land, well, that's quite a biggie for pretty well anywhere down Coast Road. You can't, under that, it would make it very difficult to subdivide a piece of land off a family or build another house or extend your house. Pretty well anything, just about. Very limiting. And it's not really a highly productive farming area.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor Briggs.
Thanks for coming in, Ken. Have yourself or any of the other 3 landowners that you've spoken about today had a conversation in person with the council staff around?
Yes, we
those
have
plans?
had a little bit of conversation. The new owner of Pinkara Lodge is hoping to have one soon, I think. But yeah, just wanting to put it across today that there's an opportunity here, council to grab to get some voluntary Indigenous biodiversity protection on a voluntary type system, which is, you know, massive win, I would have thought. Just as landowners, we need some certainty to what we can and can't do. And the overlays, when you look at it, and it covers most of your property, you're thinking, well, I can't do anything in the future. And I know Wrong Station have sort of offered the land as a reserve. The council buy it off me and turn it into as a reserve, because that's almost what they're limited to doing. Nothing.
And so just for clarity, when you met with the council officers, did you talk to them about this proposal that you're mentioning today, or was it more just around the limitations?
I have mentioned it, yes. Yeah, and I have mentioned it in the past as well. Yep.
Kia ora. Any other questions from any members? Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Ken. And just for my own clarification, you spoke about, you'd spoken to somebody from the current government. Was that part of the conversation with our team, our district plan team as well, or is this a new thing that's just come up?
No, that's since I've spoken to the officers here. Yeah.
Kia ora. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming in, Ken.
Cool.
We'll now move on to Dave and Pauline Innes, who are speaking on the draft district plan summary of submissions. Please join us at the table. When the mic's already on, so just get started when you're ready to go.
Thank you. I endorse what Craig has said in his submission. If you look at the areas of the lifestyle blocks, it's going down to, or wants to go down to 1 hectare. There's about 2,000 hectares on that map, I estimate. So that, and you can fit 2 houses on each block, and that means usually at least a dog and a couple of cats. In the Resource Management Act, there's something about the extension of services. And how can you serve 4,000 houses without the extension of services? The demand for lifestyle blocks is fairly low. There's been very few built in the last 5 years. Most of this land is hill land, class 5 or 6. It's steep, bush covered land, and there's a block further up at the end of Moores Valley that actually adjoins us, and you had a much higher density on that, and the owners had enough sense not to go ahead for it because of the costs. Now, if you're having a house on, or 2 houses on 1 hectare, that's a lot lower density than the high density that was proposed for that block. Yes, I'll leave it there.
Kia ora, thank you, David. Any members got any questions? No, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Kia ora. We'll now move on to Julie Sylvester, who is also speaking on the summary of submissions on the engagement of the draft district plan.
Good afternoon. I'd just like to make some comments on the draft plan. The natural hazards, page 20 of your attachments, I think it's a good idea to have them identified by name. Historic heritage, page 21. I believe there's a house in Wainuiomata Coast Road that this may apply to.
Sorry, would you mind just moving your mic just a little bit closer to your mouth? Just struggling to hear you. Thank you.
Natural environment value, page 22. I would like to see what restrictions this council is going to impose on landowners under the banner of Indigenous biodiversity. The last effort was different from what was gazetted by the Governor-General. Subdivisions, page 24, the attachment, a request for approval of composting toilets. Why not make them incinerating toilets? Residential zone, no allowance or mention of tiny homes as infill. Medium density, water tanks that form concrete deckings and patios, used a lot in the area that I was brought up in, and they were very successful. Rural lifestyle zones, page 31 of the attachment, no further subdivisions, but allow tiny homes for ageing parents totally off-grid. What is suggested on page 31 is ribbon development. Commercial and mixed zones, page 32 of the attachment, increase the height of these by 2 floors, one for accommodation and the other for car parking. It never ceases to amaze me how an industrial area in Wainuiomata is developed in the middle of a residential area, and I'm referring to Ipswich Grove. Future development, I am told that the NZTA has purchased the industrial land at the entrance of Granada North on the Petone side. That area would have two benefits, housing in sections plus the removal of traffic from the Naranga Gorge. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you for coming in, Julie. Just wanted to check that the points you've just raised now, you did make a submission through the process.
No, I haven't.
No. Kia ora, thank you so much. Any other members? To stay at the table, we might have some questions from other members if you want to stay. Hopefully there is one now that I've said that. No, kia ora, thank you for coming in, Julie. And we'll make sure we take those on board. The final speaker today is Jane Wooten, who is also speaking on the summary of submissions in the draft district plan. Kia ora, Jane, the mic's already live, so just start when you're ready.
I can see that.
Kia ora, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Firstly, the first point, I object to this density housing at the end of Moores Valley Road. How many of you have actually driven down Moores Valley Road at a 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock time of the day? How many? What's traffic like? No, well, that's the point. That's the point. Because, you know, you get 50-odd houses at the end of Moores Valley, you get 100 cars, because that far out of the township, you have to have 2 cars. No bikes, because there's no bikes should be allowed on Moores Valley Road in the condition it is at the moment. So you get 2 cars, you get people who live there at this point in time, young people mostly, who think that the world's their oyster and they'll just zoom along Moores Valley regardless. And it's quite a zigzaggy road. It's not straight. And so you get these cars, and before you know it, you've got an accident. So who's going to be responsible for that accident? Firstly, the person in control of the car. Secondly, the people who suggested that that many cars should be on that road. So I just think it's just far-sightedness. It's not logical. Secondly, I support Craig and his dad about the submissions of this whole process. I tried to get in. I got in once, and due to unforeseen circumstances, I had to leave, and I went back, and I could not get back into the submission, which made me really angry because my time is as important as anybody else's. I was so angry. And to say that the residents of the Rural Association combine as one submission is incorrect. It should be corrected. The point is, there are people that make one submission in the Rural Association, but that's not everybody. When it's not everybody can do it at the same time as a rural submission can be done. So that I believe is as Craig and his dad said, that's incorrect, and it should be corrected. And also the last problem is, as Ken said, the rates, 15% rates. In 1980, when we first came to Moores Valley, we challenged the council. We had a fight with the council about water supply, rubbish, and septic tanks. I have septic tanks. I organise my own rubbish, and I've got my own water supply. So if this 15% increase in rates involves any of these services, that's not right. That's not right, because I'm paying for something I already have and already organise. So that's my submission.
Kia ora, thank you so much, Jane. Were there any questions from members? No, cool. I just wanted to point out one point that we do charge a separate rating line for wastewater. So if you are on a septic tank, you shouldn't have a line on your rates bill that says wastewater.
Well,
it is a fixed amount. So
I don't always have time to go through. This is the point. I sit there and say that, but not everybody has the time to do that. And that's another reason that the council don't get the reaction that they should get, because people they've got busy lives, and nothing that the council puts out is simple. It's always complicated and repeating, and people just say, oh, look, I'm just sick of it. They're sick of it. And I've had people say that to me a lot. So, and also the rates used to come with a little circle of the percentage of what the rates are for. Don't do that anymore. Don't do that anymore. If you make it simple and to the point, then people probably feel a little bit better about it, but they're not at the moment.
Kia ora, thank you. Obviously, we're just dealing with the district plan today, but this is a bit of a feedback to your question. We are about to consult on our next long-term plan, next plan for the decade, and in there is a consultation document, which is a summary. It's meant to be as easy as possible to read. Obviously, it is a detailed work plan for a decade, but that's coming out in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. That does have the graph with the breakdown of where we're proposing to spend money, and obviously that's open for public consultation as well. Did any members have any questions? No. Kia ora, thank you so much for coming in, Jane. Cool, I'll just double check. There's no other members of the public wishing to speak. No, kia ora. Thank you so much for coming in. You're more than welcome to join us, or you can continue watching the meeting online if you'd rather not stick around, but you're more than welcome to stay. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 4, which is conflict of interest declarations. Do any members have any conflict of interest? Noting that we are just signing off the summary of submissions today. Great. Cool. We'll move on to item number 5 then, which is the summary of engagement on the draft district plan, which is on page 7 of our agenda. I'd like to ask Nathan Good, our policy planning manager, to speak to the item and join us at the table. Thank you, Nathan.
Happy to take the paper as read for the most part. I just want to note that this was a very strong, constructive response for this engagement. More submissions, more feedback than we've received on other processes since I've been at council, which is 9.5 years now. And just also want to reiterate that this is just a summary and it doesn't replace the submissions that are actually received, and all of those submissions are being read by the relevant officers that are dealing with those topics that those submissions address. So it's really just trying to get a summary across to the committee.
Kia ora. Any questions from any members? Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you so much. Great summary, but will we get to actually read all of the documents? Did I hear that was going to happen?
We hadn't intended to provide all submissions to councillors. It's a little bit of a different process from the normal Resource Management Act plan change process, where with those processes, it's made very clear from the start that any submissions that are made are public submissions and people's names and contact details are provided alongside those submissions. In this case, it wasn't necessarily always clear or indicated to submitters that what they were saying would be made public. It's something that if it's the request of the committee, we could make public, but that would need to be through the appropriate Privacy Act channels, through our privacy officers, to make sure that that is in accordance with that Act.
Councillor Edward.
Thanks, Nathan. The paper tells us that officers are going to have to, as they're doing the review of chapters based on the submissions, also are going to have to look at what the new government has to say with changes to NPSIB and NPS, highly productive soils and so on. So that's to come, obviously. But there were some of the people who submitted to us today seem to be questioning the accuracy of the highly productive soil maps as well. Are we intending to do any work on the accuracy of those maps?
We'll ensure that the maps that we include of highly productive land are accurate. Without wanting to get too much into the detail of the specific topic of the district plan review, the National Policy Statement on Highly Productive Land sets a fairly rigid methodology that the council is required to use through the district plan review on identifying highly productive land. And I think a lot of people will freely admit that it's not the most accurate method possible, but it is the method that we're required to use. Along with other central government direction, it does present a bit of a risk for the district plan review, the fact that there are things that are likely to change in coming months, coming years through central government. That presents a risk to the review because officers don't want to be making recommendations to the committee and the council in general on things that only 2 or 3 weeks later may suddenly change. We've seen that happen with other councils. We're doing what we can to keep in close contact with officers from the Ministry for the Environment so that we can reduce that risk as much as possible. But they're in a situation where they're often not able to share information on what their upcoming changes may be often because they haven't done the work themselves yet on that.
And if a new MPS does come out while we've notified our proposed plan, will the hearings committee take that on board when it makes its final recommendation, i.e. if the government has changed its position on highly productive land, even if we've gone out with our proposed plan, including it, they would then clean that up before the end of that quite long process? Or is it sort of once that line in the sand is drawn, that's how we move forward?
They will take it into account. There's a bit of detail depending on when that national policy statement would come out, and I guess the degree that it differs from where the proposed district plan at that point would be. It could be something where they suggest to council that we do what's called a variation, which is where you, in the middle of a plan change process, create a proposed change, I suppose, to the proposal. But that all depends really on the timing of it and the degree of change.
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Briggs, then Deputy Mayor Lewis, then Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to pick up on the comments made under public comment in objection to submissions being counted as one submission. So from officers in the room, my understanding is that standard practice, when there's a submission made, it's always counted as one, whether it's from a single individual, a household, a group or organisation, that it's standard practice within council. Same as when it comes to petitions, it's one petition rather than X amount of signatories. So just want to get that clarity as well before we move forward with any changes or updating submissions that have already occurred.
Certainly in a formal submission process, like when we're formally notifying our new proposed district plan, yes, that's the case, that each individual submission is counted as one submission, whether it's from a group or from an individual. In this situation, this isn't that formal process. This is an informal process where I guess the rules about how we count things are not as rigid. The summary itself doesn't really attempt to quantify the number of submissions or the number of views shared one way or another with any accuracy. I was the author of the summary in that point, but I was really just trying to get an indication over to the committee about how widely a particular view was expressed, rather than just blandly saying this view was shared, this view was shared, this view was shared, just something to give an indication about how often it was shared. But I think the point's well made that in some circumstances a submission is representing the views of more than just the person that has provided it to us. The added point I'd like to make is when we're considering these submissions, we're not necessarily considering, so maybe if I take a step back, just because something is said most often does not necessarily mean that an officer is going to say, yes, that's the view that we agree with. It's the point that is made alongside that is going to be the more determining factor. So it's where a submitter starts to talk about the effects and why those effects are so significant. Those are kind of, I guess, the more persuasive arguments that may result in a chapter ultimately taking a particular approach in the proposed district plan. It's not simply saying more people wanted a lower lot size, so we're going to recommend a lower lot size. It is more about the arguments that go alongside it. I should say that gets to a point where, you know, all of a sudden 90% of a community is dead against something. It does start to have a weighing effect, I suppose, on the recommendations of officers.
Kia ora, thank you, Nathan. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. Thanks, Nathan. How do we deal with, and you've just touched on it lightly, but in regards to page 24, when it's got requests for provisions, and one of them was approved systems for composting toilets. There was 3 items there. because I think composting toilets are a jolly good thing, but I don't know how it's dealt with at the moment in our district plan, so I just wondered how we do that now.
Cool. I'm a bit reluctant to get into too much detail of what we're going to do now as the next step. That'll definitely
Okay.
come.
All
We're
right.
definitely going to have workshops and meetings on
So,
some of the submissions.
so requests for provisions will be considered?
This is a summary that says
Okay.
that somebody has requested that. That's
Yeah.
not saying officers think we should do it or shouldn't do
No,
it. It's just
no.
saying someone's requested it, and at a later date, officers will say,
We'll
hey,
consider
someone
it.
suggested this, we've considered it. We
Okay.
think it's a good idea, we think it's a bad idea. That'll come.
Thank you.
But I'm sort of reluctant to open up the wormhole that could be.
Yeah, it
every
mightn't
topic.
happen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the other question is, and with regard to what the government's doing in, new position with all the policies and the change and the confusion that it will lead to for our community as well, everyone that has made submissions into this draft, will we be communicating these changes with them to let them know where we're at?
We can do that, but we do have now a record of the contact details of all the people that have been involved in this process. Probably depends on what the changes are that are made by central government about which of those people we contact. If someone's only submitted on industrial zones and the government makes a change to highly productive land, maybe they're not so interested in that change. But absolutely, we can keep people informed that have taken an interest in the review.
Yeah, thank you. I just think that's the most important part. As was indicated, it's just been, the clarity about what's going on. It just gives them an overview. Hey, we are onto it, and we know you're interested because you have submitted. So that'll be great.
And I note that there'll be other people in the community who are interested and for whatever reason have chosen not to be involved in this process. But certainly those major changes that central government, making sure that the community is aware of them. Absolutely.
And before I go to Councillor Mitchell, I think it would be good, obviously the formal proposed notified plan will have a quite formal RMA process, and obviously alongside that we can do some other information. I think it would be quite useful at that notification stage to sort of have a pretty easy to read document. Hey, here's where our draft landed. Here's where our proposed plan is. What are the changes and why we've kind of changed them? If the government's position's changed, then it's really easy to say. If the committee's made a decision, hey, we are going to force compost toilets as a suggestion, just to kind of provide a list of changes that we are going to make iteratively over the next few months through workshops and committee meetings and just a really good summary at the end of this process, how we got from where we are now to where we're going to be come September. Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, just a follow-up comment to that first. I think actually we need to still treat this as a new district plan that's replacing the old district plan. So there's a whole lot of changes that have been made, not just the ones between now and then. I just wanted to, sorry, we keep flipping between topics, come back to the potential government changes, and we heard about them in public comment. The coalition, I think, signalled pretty strongly in their 100-day plan that they would begin to cease implementation of any new significant natural areas. So it's a very strong signal about what they're planning to do in that regard. And presumably we'll hear more detail about that within the next week or so before the 100 days run out. The other one, the highly productive land that was mentioned, I don't remember seeing that in coalition agreements or hearing about that one before. Is that on your radar that there's change coming in that area through discussions you've had with MFE?
I'm in the same position as you. I haven't heard of anything mentioned publicly that that's something that central government is looking at. In conversations with Ministry for the Environment, it has been more about keeping tabs on whether there is something in train at Ministry for the Environment that, again, it's about what is the risk of potential changes that may be coming along their pipeline that we should be aware of to ensure that it doesn't disrupt the district plan review. So nothing that I'm aware of, but obviously there's all sorts of things that the ministry may be working on that they can't speak about publicly.
Thank you. And in terms of the process for taking on board suggestions that have been made in the submissions and feedback that's been made, between now and when the draft plan goes out at the end of the year, sorry, not the draft plan, the notified plan, are we going to go back into a cycle of going through the whole thing chapter by chapter and you'll be building in bits and pieces, or will it be more done as a whole and presented to us when the notified plan is near completion?
So maybe a bit of an overview about how we see the, I guess, or how I see the work program for the rest of the year playing out is we're looking at having a proposed district plan ready for notification and presented to the committee and council in September, around then. And through the committee's meeting cycle, there's a couple of committee meetings between now and then. The key topics where we feel that we need the committee's direction on to prepare a proposed district plan, we intend to bring those back to the committee with options and recommendations, but not every single topic. If it's a topic where we feel that we have sufficient direction already and there is likely to be little change between the draft and the proposed, then we're unlikely to bring that back. However, ultimately, all of it, before it's a proposed notified district plan, does get brought back to the committee and to the council, along with our what are called the Section 32 evaluation reports. So the reports that talk about why those chapters have the objectives, policies and rules that those chapters have. Why do officers consider those to be the most effective and efficient means to achieve what the district plan needs to achieve? So ultimately you will see everything, yes, but there will be specific reports on topics where we think it's required.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor Shaw.
Gosh, there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment. So is there any possible danger of us going past our deadlines for this district plan? Do you have enough resource and people to gather in all the information that's needed?
Yes, we have enough resource to prepare a proposed district plan in time for that September date. The greater risk is with if there are significant changes that we all of a sudden need to adapt to and we just don't have enough time to adapt. That's particularly the case where there's a change that all of a sudden requires us to engage technical experts to do a technical assessment on something. If something all of a sudden requires us to go away and do 2 months' work, well, that doesn't leave us enough time in some circumstances. Should note that one of the things that's been mentioned earlier was the National Policy Statement on Indigenous Biodiversity. That is something where, if that remained untouched by central government, which seems unlikely, but if that was the case, the work hasn't been done for the identification of significant natural areas, so we wouldn't be able to prepare an Indigenous biodiversity chapter now in time to include it in the proposed district plan. However, it seems likely that those requirements will change in the coming months anyway.
Kia ora, any other questions from members? Councillor Brigg.
Last one from me, just around Ken's comments and public comment around himself and the other 3 significant landowners and their conversations with council officers so far. I'm just checking whether the council officers still have capacity to have those ongoing conversations with landowners and work out what is possible, if anything, as well as understanding the impacts of the district plan on their future development plans as well.
Absolutely, we have capacity to continue having those conversations and to even have them more frequently than what they've been had in the past. Not an issue with that.
Order, Councillor Mitchell.
Just on particular issues, like the ones that were raised in public comment about particular landowners who want to discuss their own properties and kind of trade-offs that may be available to be made. Is that a district plan issue, or is that more of a private plan change in the future, a more appropriate way of addressing those kind of particular desires of landowners? I mean, I assume if you're going to be changing anything, you'd be changing it in the district plan for everybody, not for particular landowners. That's my question really, is the, individual conversation something that should happen in this process or through a private process?
It can be either. It's not unusual for through a new district plan like the council's preparing at the moment for there to be site-specific provisions introduced through that, and then that's certainly an option available to council. Whether that's something that is done through the process we're going through now, so it's included in the proposed district plan, or whether that's in response to formal submissions through the submission process. Again, either way's an option. But it's certainly not something that needs to be pushed off to a future private plan change process. That can be a complicated and costly process. So if there's something that the council is happy to see or would like to see in its district plan that is specific to a site, then I'd suggest doing it through this process than pushing it through a separate process with the added cost associated.
Kia ora. Any other questions from members? No, cool. Thank you so much, Nathan. I'd like to move the recommendation that the committee notes and receives the information in this report, including the summary of feedback of the draft district plan attached as Appendix 1 to this report, and 2, notes that this report solely represents a summary of engagement of the draft district plan and the feedback received during engagement and does not provide advice or make recommendations in response to that feedback. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Briggs. Cool. I'd like to open up for discussion. Any members wishing to speak? No, cool. I'll just make a few quick points. Firstly, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone who's participated in this engagement process. Your feedback has been invaluable in shaping the future of our district plan. It's clear from the summary that there are several key issues that have been raised through the community, such as the rezoning of Benmore Crescent, natural hazards and other overlays, historic heritage and zoning changes. These are the areas that we'll really consider carefully as we move forward with this process. So as we transition to the next stage of preparing our proposed district plan, it's important that our officers will review all the feedback thoroughly, and we'll be engaging through a series of meetings and workshops to address the issues raised. We must also stay pretty in tune with what the government's proposed changes are as well as we navigate through this, which I can definitely see being a bit of a challenge given the timeframes that we're in. But we are aiming to present the proposed district plan to the committee and full council in the third quarter of this year, where we do have a legislative requirement as to why we've got to hit these deadlines as well. So we are in a bit of a tricky position. But there will be further opportunities for engagement and feedback as we refine our plan. And finally, I want to thank everyone for their contributions so far. The success of our district plan review depends on the active participation and collaboration of our community. So let's continue to work together and create a plan that really works. Cool, I've moved it, got a seconder. All those in favour, please say aye. All against? Declare that carried. Thank you, Nathan. We'll now move on to item number 6, which is the spatial plan work program, which is on page 73 of our agenda. And I'd like to ask Lucy, our Head of Urban Development, to speak to this item. Kia ora, Lucy, thank you.
Kia ora. So in November last year, we presented high-level ideas about the spatial plan. We had our consultant speaking to you then. Since then, we've fleshed out the work program and are further ahead. We've had a number of internal workshops and discussions, and we will be starting to engage with mana whenua shortly. So I'm happy to take any questions on the paper.
Kia ora. Do any members have any questions? Cool. Councillor Mitchell, and then maybe Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I feel like this has been talked about for quite a while, so it's nice to see a timeline that wraps it up towards the end of this year. I was curious about the life of this plan once it is developed and adopted. A lot of statutory plans have a required date of renewal or replacement. This one is a 30-year plan. It's a very long plan, so I was kind of curious what will be triggers for this plan to be changed in future after it's adopted in response to changes that might come down from central government or as part of a natural kind of planning cycle.
Yes, so this is not going to be a statutory document and therefore there is no specific time frame, but the document will replace our 2012 to 32 urban growth strategy. So that gives you an idea. 12 years ago, we prepared a strategy. Normally, we would update these documents more regularly, probably every 6 years. Every 2 rounds of LTP is probably the ideal sort of cycle, but invariably here in other local authorities, this proves to be too short, and we end up with 10 years or more between 2 rounds of documents. But if there was to be a new requirement from central government for spatial planning at a local level, well, we would be in a very good position, having done all the work, and depending on when such a requirement occurred, then we would decide whether the document we've got is up to date or needs to be updated. And if there was unexpected urban growth, that means that our baseline has changed so much. Like the last urban growth strategy reacted to very low growth and decline in population. So if the basics were to change once more, then perhaps our strategy would need to change to reflect that.
Kia ora, thank you. Deputy Mayor Lewis, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much, Lucy. It is good to see a spatial plan. We've done a few in the years since 2012 as well, and I did have a question of the chair, but I went back and read the earlier paper. So the question was about recognising the other spatial plans that have already been done, and perhaps just acknowledging how you will incorporate, you know, is there some of the work that has been done that can be incorporated into this spatial plan, that, you know, they all involve lots of community people, and there's certain areas with certain character that nobody really wants to lose, and still have the growth, you know, as well in the spatial plan.
We're certainly building on all the work that's been done to date, and we have several council teams involved in the preparation of the spatial plan. Whether the level of detail of a citywide spatial plan is able to accommodate the level of detail of the suburb by suburb spatial plan, I doubt it. I don't think we'll be able to go into that much detail for everywhere, and therefore it'll be higher level, but we'll try to make sure that it reflects all the input we've had from the communities in the past.
So for a city, how do areas get their or retain their own identity? How do they, you know, become, you know, unique for that area and not to lose certain characters? I'm thinking of, you know, Eastbourne and places like that.
I suppose there's a bit of overlap between the district plan and the spatial plan. If there were area that warranted character protection, then I would expect that to be addressed through the district plan, because clearly the spatial plan is not going to be statutory, so it wouldn't provide protection.
Good, thank you for those questions. Any other members got questions? Councillor Edwards.
Just looking at the timing of how we're going to proceed with the spatial plan, and I see that at the end of this month we were going to maybe be in a position where we have identified common themes and potential key moves, which sounds quite interesting. And then we go out to mana whenua, as we should, as key partners, and then we go out to Crown agencies, and then it seems like councillors might get a look at it. Is there a reason for that order?
The other parties, mana whenua and the Crown agencies, really are helping us shape our thinking in terms of their own initiatives and visions, and if Kāinga Ora have big investment programs, for example, we need to know that, because that's intrinsic to our growth and how we manage our growth and where growth will occur and where we might need to invest in our own infrastructure, for example. So that's why we're having these conversations. We're not going to them with a form plan. There is not a form plan yet, and it will be May or June before we do have a form plan. It really is to gather information from them.
Kia ora, any further questions? No. Awesome. I'd like to move the recommendations then that are on page 73. I won't read through all of them, but they're in front of us there. The committee approves the timeline for the preparation of the spatial plan as follows from A through to I. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shaw. Any members wishing to speak? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, just briefly to say I'm really interested to see what comes out of those conversations with mana whenua, but also with Crown agencies. You mentioned kāinga order. From time to time, residents ask me to try and find out what kāinga order's plans are in their neighbourhoods, and it's like getting blood out of a stone to get them to commit or confess to anything beyond a 2-year time frame, and they blame that on the funding arrangement with the government. So really interested to see what they do have themselves in terms of long-term plans for our city. And also what the aspirations of our mana whenua are in terms of the spatial plan. So yeah, really look to see what comes back out of those processes.
Also noting that a lot of those conversations are already happening through IAF funding arrangements as well. So obviously that'll all get tied into this. Any other members wishing to speak? No, I'd like to put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. All against? I declare that carried. Moving on to item number 7, information item, District Plan Review Committee Forward Programme, page 80 of our agenda. Do any members have any questions on this one? Cool, Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I just wonder if, given the conversations we've had today and the general awareness of a lot of change might be coming through this year, if we could have a standing item for any kind of current change that's coming through or signalled by central government and what impacts that might have.
Yep, happy to add that in there. I think it's kind of a given that if there's a change in the government,
sure.
it will be on our next agenda as soon as even if officers haven't had time to process an MPS. In my head, I'm picturing an MPS coming out after a pre-agenda meeting almost, given some how these land. So yeah, we can add it in there, but I'm fairly confident any big changes that are coming from the government will come through this committee. Let's see if we can make a note of adding that to the work plan. Any other questions? No, I'll move the recommendation that the committee receives and notes the forward work program for the District Plan Review Committee for the remainder of 2024. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mitchell, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. All against? Declare that carried. Number 8, questions. I've received no questions. We'll move on to item number 9, closing formalities. We're having some IT issues, so we've all got it in front of us, and I'm sure most of us know it by now. So please join me on page 6 of our agenda. Me noi tātou. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia e te uru tapa nui, kia wātea, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua e te ara takatū. Koe rā e rongo, whakaiaki ki runga, kia wātea, ai rā, kua wātea, hau pai mārie. Kia ora, thank you everyone for joining us today. I declare the meeting closed at 3:10 p.m.